Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called I Found a Family That Wasn't in My Adoption Plan. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! A memory of a grim past resurfaces as our main protagonist's stream of consciousness fades to a blur. Suffocated like a thorn of roses wrapping around her neck, she ponders when and where her life went astray. The dying wish of a damsel in distress bears fruit as she battles for her consciousness in the body of a little girl desperately clinging to life. The burning sensation all over her body, the breaths that are so difficult to catch, the tears of her maid as she holds onto her hand, and the faint voice of an angry man, a familiar voice, fill her senses. As the horror of her situation washes over her, the little girl with hair as silver as moonlight and eyes as red as crimson sheds a tear. The last thing she hears before losing consciousness once again is the voice of the man who killed her in her previous life, wishing for her to die. She wonders why life is so cruel. I already know who my least favorite character is going to be. A worried call goes out to a little girl named Erin. A maid attending to her advises her not to move so much, to which a lively Erin responds that she should not worry because she's already recovered. The anxious maid acknowledges Erin's response. However, she still asks her to rest in her room as she lifts and carries her. She adds that if something were to happen to little Erin again, she would undoubtedly be kicked out of the Bronnot house. Erin Bronnot is the little girl's name, but no matter how many times she's called that, she remains unaccustomed to it. The Bronnot house estate is where Erin worked in her previous life as a secretary for a decade. She also remembers that 10 years ago, Havernick Barano's schemes began. Though she has been reincarnated, it still jars her that she remains entangled with the family. While being carried through the hallway, she sees a large portrait of the late Duke. Erin realizes that she reincarnated around the time she started serving the Bronnot family. The late Duke, Raffrin Bronnot, was the father of 3 troublesome sons. None of them were fitting to carry the legacy of the late Duke, each having their own unique yet reprehensible acts. By process of elimination, Havernick inherited the title of the Duke and began his evil schemes. As a secretary, Erin was associated with Havernick's wrongdoings. However, even a decade of servitude did not guarantee her life. Erin witnessed countless lives lost, yet she never expected she would be a victim as well. Erin died in a serene and quiet sea. She had thought that she would only be enjoying her time there, but being there meant she would also be helpless. Erin died alone. The painful memory recedes as she regretfully remembers serving an evil man. I mean, yeah, she did willingly work for an evil man in the very first place. Erin's train of thought is cut off as her maid Mari shares her joy over Erin's recovery. Mari even prayed, though unsure if it did anything, which moves little Erin. Mari asks Erin if she wants some snacks, but she quickly refuses, realizing that the snacks Mari had been giving her are the same ones given to the servants of the Bronnot household. Erin Bronnot is the only daughter of Colony Bronnot, one of the 3 brothers. After her father and mother passed, she was transferred to the Duke's estate but was neglected, much like the maid currently taking care of her, Mari. Erin recalls that in her previous life, by the time she joined the household as a secretary, the original Erin had already passed away. Though it was said to be due to an accident, none of the servants actually believed it. She believes that Havernick was actually the cause of her death. Determined to change her fate now, Erin starts to act before Havernick even gets the chance to adopt her. Erin wanders through the massive library of the Bronnot family estate. It is housed in a separate building, a luxurious structure filled with countless books. She is here to learn more about magic science. Magic science is a field that explores magic power, particularly in creating magical tools. Many magic scientists use these tools to advance the Aetener Empire. However, studying magic science requires significant wealth, a barrier that does not apply to the opulent Bronnot family. After finding the book she needs, Erin stumbles upon a disorganized table. Upon closer inspection, she notices a formula related to magic science. Before she can examine it further, a disgruntled man startles her. Geoffrey Bronnot. Geoffrey Bronnot, the 3rd son of Duke Raffrin Bronnot, is an eccentric recluse often regarded as a mad scientist. He spends his days researching magic science and rarely interacts with anyone who lacks expertise in the field. At his sharp command, Erin immediately puts down the paper with the formula. Geoffrey orders her to stop snooping around and scram at once. Depressed by his reaction, Erin fears that she has lost her chance to connect with him. Her interest in magi science stems from her hope that Jeffrey will adopt her instead of Havernick. Is he going to be another annoying character? As she reflects on what she saw in Jeffrey's journal, Erin realizes that the incomplete formula is revolutionary. It's the Elfro magic calculation formula. This formula can create magical tools using only small amounts of magic stones. However, something doesn't add up. In her previous life, Havernick claimed credit for discovering this formula in his lab. If it's currently in Jeffrey's possession, then Havernick must have stolen it from him. Erin debates whether to tell Jeffrey about this, but wonders if he even cares as long as he gets to continue his research. Moments later, Jeffrey lets out a frustrated cry, prompting Erin to wonder if he's stuck on completing the formula. Summoning her courage, she approaches him with a parchment in hand, but barely finishes speaking before he snatches it from her. An infuriated Erin exclaims that he got the calculation wrong, to which made Jeffrey, to no surprise, displeased. Erin becomes even more frustrated upon witnessing Jeffrey's response, which she reiterates loudly that he made at least 3 mistakes, then storms out of the library. Back in her room, Erin regrets confronting him so harshly. Discouraged by her dwindling chances of being adopted by Jeffrey, she decides to return to the library for more books. However, when she opens her door, she finds a disheveled Jeffrey standing there. Startled by his appearance, Erin freezes, but Jeffrey isn't here to argue. Instead, he wants to talk about the mistakes she mentioned earlier. Oh, is he really not as bad as I initially thought? Erin doubts that Jeffrey would come all the way to her room just to confirm the mistakes she mentioned. Despite her skepticism, she affirms his question. Jeffrey then confronts her about how she noticed the 3 mistakes, pointing out that it's not something one would just know with a simple glance. He asks when did she start snooping around on his research. Erin dismissed his accusations, replying that it was only yesterday that she found out of his research. Jeffrey's skepticism rises, even asking if he's supposed to believe something like that. Erin confidently responds that she understands calculations, including those for formulas. This makes Jeffrey really suspicious. Erin, annoyed by his suspicion, proposes that he can test her if he so desires it. Jeffrey ponders upon this idea and eventually agrees to test her. He hands her a pile of papers and asks her to find any errors. He slowly goes through the papers, asking Erin the problems and miscalculations of each paper. To his disbelief, Erin completes the task with ease and accuracy. With that many papers, isn't he just making an excuse to let her do the job? In her previous life at the orphanage, Erin was considered a prodigy, which is why she was allowed to work for the Bronop family in the first place. After gathering the papers, Jeffrey tells Erin to meet him in the laboratory later. She is now his new assistant. This leaves her confused. She had hoped for a familial bond with Jeffrey, but now finds herself in a more of a business relationship. Jeffrey tells Erin that he has lots of things to teach Erin, so she should not be late. He heads out to prepare and clean things up before she goes there. As Jeffrey heads back to his lab, he pauses and asks Erin what snacks she would like. She briefly considers requesting something expensive, but feeling guilty for freeloading, settles on biscuits. Satisfied with her response, Jeffrey leaves. Later, Erin arrives at the laboratory door but hesitates to enter. She broods over whether this endeavor is pointless and fears that she might end up dying again anyway. However, with no better options than aligning with Jeffrey over Havernick, she resolves to follow him for now and earn his favor. When Erin steps into the lab, she is mesmerized by its pristine condition. Surprising for someone as reclusive as Jeffrey. He offers her a tiny desk and apologizes for the short notice, promising to find a better one later. He adds that he needs to finish something first, but encourages her to eat from the tray on the table in the meantime. Curious, Erin lifts the lid of the tray and finds biscuits and a strawberry cake. Unsure if she can eat it, she asks Jeffrey for permission. He waves his hand dismissively in response. Delighted by how delicious the cake is, Erin feels less intimidated by Jeffrey. When he notices how quickly she finishes it, he asks if she wants seconds. Though she refuses, he blushes and tells her she can ask for more anytime. Realizing that Jeffrey himself prepared the cake, Erin praises him enthusiastically. Afterward, Jeffrey tells her to follow him so he can show her what tasks she will need to complete as his assistant. Jeffrey lends Erin a book he authored himself, claiming it to surpass any other book in the Empire. He emphasizes that he's only lending it to her, but is not intending on giving it to her since he doesn't just give books to anyone. Erin agrees as she curiously admires the book. He then remarks that now that she is recharged with cake, they can begin working. He adds that geniuses like them need sugar for their brains to function. Erin is flattered, but she slowly realizes something. Erin is shocked by this revelation and suspects Jeffrey only fed her to make her work more efficiently. Her suspicions grow when he hands her another pile of papers to inspect for mistakes. She briefly feels exploited, but quickly forgets when Jeffrey promises more sweets tomorrow. Oh, Jeffrey, this is totally child exploitation. Poor Erin. Humming as she strolls through the hallway, Erin wonders how studying magic science might strengthen her relationship with Jeffrey. She hopes that by showing interest in his work, he will eventually warm up to her and adopt her. Her thoughts are interrupted by an insult from behind. Turning around, she sees two children, Abalon and Vimel, Havernick's sons. She expects to eventually stumble upon them, but now that she isn't surprised by their rudeness. They've always been unpleasant. In her previous life as a secretary, she bowed to them out of obligation. Now, as a direct descendant of the Brawnut family, she feels no need to do so. She concludes that by the way the brother interacts with her, this is not the first time they are being rude towards Erin. It could be that even prior to her being reincarnated. When Erin dismisses them by saying she's busy, Abalon grows angry and tries to intimidate her by pointing his index finger onto her forehead. He once again starts asking mean questions like why is an outsider like her strolling in the main house? Both brothers are surprised when she doesn't cry like she used to. Erin stands her ground and just stares at them for a bit. Subsequently, she then retaliates by calling them Peeing Brothers, a nickname inspired by complaints their mother made in her previous life. You shouldn't antagonize them. I don't think it will turn out good in the long run. Startled by her boldness, they grow defensive. She tells them she'll let it slide this time, but moves to leave when one of them blocks her path. Abalon demands she crawl between their legs if she wants to pass. Refusing this humiliation, Erin warns them to stop while she's still being nice. This only angers Abalon further. He grabs her aggressively and hurls insults at her. Unpleasant memories from her past life flood Erin's mind. Overwhelmed by anger and frustration, she hits Abalon with the book Jeffrey lent her. Abalon's forehead starts to bleed, which panics his little brother Vimel. Vimel is already really scared and wants to retreat as Erin shushes them away with the book. Enraged, Abalon starts a brawl. After a while, the brothers storm into Havernick's office and tattle on Erin. They twist the story in their favor while Erin stands silently, unable to defend herself. The horror on Erin's face is visible upon hearing the boys' lies. Abalon pushes Erin forward as Havernick gives her insensitive remarks by saying she's proving to them that she grew up without parents. Erin could only look down while listening to all of this. Havernick rises from his chair and demands that Erin apologize to his sons. She remains silent, refusing to comply, an act that further insults him. Havernick grabs Erin's hands, gripping them aggressively. He orders her to kneel and apologize properly. I really hate this guy. Another unpleasant memory flashes through her mind, but to avoid escalating the situation further, she decides to comply. Just as she is about to follow his order, Jeffrey intervenes. Ignoring Havernick entirely, he approaches Erin and asks if she is okay. This infuriates Havernick, who launches into a rant about how Erin hurt his sons. Jeffrey calmly defends her, implying that he witnessed what really transpired between Erin and the brothers. Before Havernick can respond, Jeffrey leads Erin out of the office, leaving the Duke confused. What? You saw that but chose not to do anything and wait? Back in the laboratory, Jeffrey treats Erin's wounds and reminds her to be careful next time. This worries Erin as she already made a huge mess for Jeffrey. Though she's a good assistant, Jeffrey would never adopt someone who's already made so much trouble for him. However, while Erin was lost in thought, Jeffrey reassures her that the P brothers won't bother her for a while and tells her to come to him if anything happens again. Finally, he consoles her by saying she did nothing wrong. These words move Erin deeply. She has never heard such kindness before. She gratefully accepts once again the book Jeffrey lent to her after dusting it off for her. She hugs it tightly. Seeing this, Jeffrey can't help but watch her with a faint smile. When Erin returns to her room, Mari greets her with concern after seeing her with bandages all over her. She lies to her, telling her that she only fell, but Mari knows that this is not the kind of wounds she would attain just by tripping. Mari gets upset and accuses Jeffrey. Erin then immediately dismisses this accusation, explaining that he was the one who treated her. He might as well be the one who caused this. He didn't do anything when he saw it happen. However, fearing Havernick's spite, Erin avoids telling Mari what happened. Mari points out that ever since Erin recovered from her fever, Erin became a completely different person and feels proud of how much Erin has changed. She makes Erin promise to confide in her if she ever feels pain. Later, Erin sprints back to the laboratory carrying a parchment, a blueprint for a magical tool that will one day be commercialized. Jeffrey was about to discard it, but Erin saved it just in time. Jeffrey leaves for the royal palace earlier than expected, which surprises Erin. She concludes that her actions may have sped up the timeline of events from her previous life. Knowing that Jeffrey will become busier upon his return, she decides she must find a way to monetize the blueprints before then. However, she faces one major challenge. How can a mere 7-year-old possibly accomplish such a feat? As she ponders this problem, Duke Raffrin Bronot suddenly appears and asks what she's doing. In her previous life, she remembers him being sickly, but now he looks healthier than ever. After shaking off the thought, Erin greets him politely and explains that she is Jeffrey's assistant. Curious about his son's activities, Raffrin asks where Jeffrey is. When Erin replies that he has gone to the royal palace, Raffrin becomes visibly upset. He instructs her to deliver a message. If Jeffrey continues living like this, he'll be expelled from the family. Raffrin considers whether taking away Jeffrey's laboratory might finally force his son to change. Hearing this, Erin immediately opposes the idea, shouting that it cannot happen. Her outburst catches Raffrin's attention, making him curious about her reasoning. Why is every person so far in the Bronot family so obnoxious? Erin explains that Jeffrey's work is important and will benefit the Bronot family. She adds that his research will eventually turn a profit, allowing him to stop relying on Raffrin's financial support. Raffrin mumbles something under his breath, leaving Erin confused. Raffrin then asks what exactly she does as Jeffrey's assistant. Erin confidently replies that she corrects his miscalculations. This piques the interest of both Raffrin and his butler, who praises Erin for her impressive capability. Still skeptical, Raffrin presses for more details. Erin elaborates that her work focuses on ensuring the blueprints can eventually generate profit. She emphasizes that while the designs may not make sense now, once they're fully realized, they will be highly sought after, even by Raffrin himself. Amused by her confidence, Raffrin asks if the profits from these projects will be enough to fund them independently. Erin firmly reassures him that they will. After listening to her explanation, Raffrin remarks that there's no need for her to guard Jeffrey's laboratory. As he leaves, Erin worries she may have worsened the situation despite her efforts. Walking down the hallway with his butler, Raffrin reflects on their conversation. The butler asks why he left without inspecting the laboratory as planned. Raffrin replies that it can wait until after the annual meeting. Changing the subject, he asks what the butler thinks of the kid. Initially thinking he means Jeffrey, the butler quickly realizes he's referring to Erin and remarks on her great potential. Raffrin recalls how quiet and aloof Erin used to be. He also remembers her father's stubbornness, how he left the family only to pass away later, leaving his daughter behind. Worried about her future, they had taken her in because she knew no better. Both men wonder how someone like Erin could change so drastically overnight. The butler jokingly suggests it might be Jeffrey's influence, but Raffrin dismisses this idea. The butler then proposes that perhaps it is simply in Erin's nature to have such potential. He further suggests that this might be a good opportunity to provide Erin with formal education, since nurturing children is something the Bronot family prides itself on. However, he also notes that expecting a 7-year-old to fund research projects is unreasonable. Raffrin admits he doesn't expect much from what Erin said, but muses that if Jeffrey knew about her words, it might push him to get his act together. Erin now finds herself in Raffrin's office. She surmises that by now, his meeting with his retainers would be over. Erin figures her grandfather's preparing for the annual meeting of the Bronot family, held only 3 days annually, so every grand decision made here would stay for a year until it is challenged. It's expected her adoption to Harvanik will be announced here. But Erin remembers her time as his secretary, being busy creating fraudulent successful business reports for him. But with Jeffrey, everything is smooth sailing for her. That's why Erin dreads if her adoption announcement comes along with the dismantling of Jeffrey's research. That's why she can't stand by. Though filled with initial doubts, the young miss continues on to see her grandfather. There, she encounters his retainers first, who are surprised to see her there. They all seem enthralled with her, noting how cute she is. Who wouldn't, seeing her in that cute dress? Anyway, Erin knows that to make a good impression with her grandfather's retainers is a good move, so she becomes respectful towards them. though this only causes them to be enthralled with her even more. Amongst the crowd is Viscount Duce, who guides the young lady to Raffrin after listening to the other's theory that Erin either had a drawing or a letter she had just learned to show her grandfather. Upon entering Raffrin's office, Erin becomes a little scared of her grandfather's presence. The retainer spoke for her when she couldn't, and so Raffrin bids her to get closer. Erin declares that she has something to show him, but mentally notes why the retainers aren't leaving. They all stay to see Erin's supposed drawing or handwriting when it's not even that. Regardless, she hands her plan to her grandfather, who is actually worried his granddaughter fears him for his outburst on Jeffrey. Raffrin reads Erin's papers intently, and Viscount Duce, who also stayed, observes the Duke slowly reading, something unlike him. Just as he's theorizing that it's a threatening letter from his granddaughter, Raffrin bursts out laughing. Viscount Duce asks to read the document and finds it's actually a business proposal, drawn with colored pencils, mind you, about a deal to sell Erin's proposed items in exchange for not cutting or dismantling Jeffrey's research. Raffrin's laugh dies down eventually, and from his granddaughter's face, sees that she's actually serious. There's even a funny drawing at the bottom of the page, but also an equally serious warning to not turn the page if Raffrin doesn't accept the proposal. So the Duke grills Erin about the business of her proposal, such as how to turn a profit if the items she proposed won't sell. But Erin's ready, and says the items still can be recycled through Jeffrey's research as his materials. But either way, it'll solve her grandfather's problem of contemplating whether to cut Jeffrey's funds or stop his research entirely. From that, Raffrin realizes his granddaughter is actually proposing a real deal, not repeating the words of an adult. As Erin says, it's a win-win for them both. Upon Erin's proposal, Raffrin gets a stern look on his face. He considers for a moment, and without wasted movement, consults Viscount Duce if there's any magic stones left, and he informs the Duke that there's enough to make about 50 magic tools. With that, Raffrin lays down the proposition for his granddaughter. If she wishes to sell her proposed items, she's to make one prototype first, with help being assigned to her. Once done, Erin will also be involved in distributing it, and since it's about 50 of them, the Duke says it can be displayed at the Viscount's shop. Duce nervously asks what the product actually is, but Raffrin gives a cryptic answer on its future importance, and also that he might want one too. He bids his granddaughter that he's looking forward to it, and Erin can't help but explode in happiness. Oh, so cute! In fact, Erin takes a long while to get rid of her ecstatic feeling. She's delighted she took the risk, and even rummaging through Jeffrey's notes, she can't help but still have that positive, swelling emotion. Erin even recognizes that nothing has specifically changed. Her adoption announcement is still pending, and her proposal is still up for approval, despite Raffrin's somewhat acceptance of the idea. Still, all that doesn't matter. Also, Erin finally gets to meet the librarian, Alphonse, though she notes she isn't the librarian she saw when she was working, but she surmises Alphonse must have started there before her first year working as secretary in her past life, so she decides to be friendly with her. Anyway, Alphonse has arrived to deliver books that Jeffrey ordered, along with his message to Erin. If she doesn't want to read the books, she can just discard them in a corner. But how could Erin not read it when Jeffrey took the time to give her new books? Speaking of Jeffrey, currently he's grumbling in his room as he's soaking wet from the rain. But it's not the only thing he's disappointed in. He mocks the supposed best Imperial research lab of the Empire, as after all their research, they turned up with only a similar crystal. Quite another fruitless attempt. He remembers them saying it's impossible to determine the composition based on the burnt traces, proving how impossible his request was. But Jeffrey's mind wanders to Erin, who is the sole reason why their stagnant research managed to gain some ground again. Jeffrey even remarks how she, as a 7-year-old, managed to see the mistakes in the formulas, and the chief researcher at the esteemed lab was grumbling at work. Erin, on the other hand, could spend morning till evening in a lab and never seem to get bored. This leads Jeffrey to consider raising Erin as an apprentice, even considering sending her to the academy to provide her with a proper background. He paces the room, quite excited from his thoughts actually, but when he thinks about what to do next, his mind goes back to a memory of his child, excitedly showing her perfect grades. He lifts her up with his wife in the background. Suddenly, Jeffrey isn't so excited anymore, and the room gets darker as the rain outside keeps pouring. We find Erin in bed contemplating her recent achievements. It's been 2 weeks since visiting her grandfather, and she's done work the same amount as her previous life. and she even finished logging with Jeffrey's assignments, and all that's left is for her to finish reading one book. But just as she's about to do so, Mari notices the young lady still rolling around in bed. She asks if the young lady's resting, and Erin says yes. But Mari means for her to go outside and play, not to do any academic or work-related reading. Besides, as Mari says, children grow well if they play outside once in a while. Though initially hesitant, Erin agrees, as she realizes her body's only 7 years old, and she'd feel sorry if she got a terrible disease. I don't know about you, Erin, but if I was back in a child's body, I'd do nothing but play. Anyway, Erin seems to appreciate listening to Mari as she strolls through the garden, admiring the blooming flowers and the sweet scent that they fill the air with. However, while walking, she hears some adults talking ahead of her. When she gets closer, she sees Saria Burano, Havernick's wife, and a man bowing to her. It seems Saria is actually paying the man a bribe to have someone admitted in the academy. She says she'll pay him the rest after the admission. Erin couldn't find out about it anymore, though, as she unintentionally tripped and made a noise, alerting Saria to her presence. She quickly dismissed the meeting and approached Erin, who she asks how long she's been there. Erin gives a very childlike answer, leading Saria to dismiss her as well. But based on what she saw, Erin surmises that the man must have been Hilberg, a tutor for the Burano family. It seems that Havernick's siblings were accepted at the Royal Academy because of bribery. For Erin, this explains Abalon and Vimel's admission to the Academy, especially Abalon since he's as dumb as they come. But really, Erin laments not having a magical recording device then. Suddenly, the butler finds Erin and informs her that Raffrin has asked to see her. Upon entering his office, her grandfather says that this is a midterm review for Erin's product, which turned out to be a magical handheld blower. Actually, the product did really well, having already sold all 50 items. Apparently, there were blowers then, but it's too clunky and complicated to use. That's why Erin's product is so popular, as it can have a set temperature without overheating. For now, Erin exploits having built that product first perfectly. Anyway, her grandfather reveals that the meeting is more like a final review since the product did so well. So, noting his granddaughter's apparent talent for commerce, Raffrin says he plans to make more of Erin's product and asks for her approval. Naturally, the excited Erin agrees. Erin's meeting with her grandfather gets interrupted by a familiar guest, Professor Hilberg, who, quite frankly, tenses a little at the sight of Erin. She quickly realizes he's afraid that she might have talked to Raffrin about what she saw at the garden earlier. As much as Erin would have liked to do so, unfortunately, she can't without much evidence. And so the Duke asks Hilberg to sit, and he introduces Erin to him as the child he's been talking to him about. Noting her intelligence, Raffrin makes a suggestion that Hilberg should take care and teach such children, as they'd probably learn the fastest. With that, Raffrin asks Erin to introduce herself formally to the professor, which she does so wonderfully, even impressing Hilberg himself. The butler weighs in, saying Erin has the makings of a top student, and Raffrin jokes that he'd have to attend the entrance ceremony first instead of parent meetings regarding that. Only then does Erin realize that her grandfather's planning to send her to the academy. It's a great prospect and all, but Erin surmises that she'll probably die before that if the adoption goes wrong. Anyway, as the night comes, Jeffrey visits his lab with Erin there, and he notes how extraordinary it is for the young lady to organize his journals perfectly. And the proud Erin also declares she's finished with the books he told her to read, and she's moving on to the next one. After Jeffrey's words of praise, Erin suddenly realizes that she might not be able to spend that much time with Jeffrey, or at his lab once her academy training begins, so she thinks it's a good idea to let him know. However, little Erin has no idea how big a trouble will come after she does this. The next scene opens with Jeffrey brutally kicking down the door to Raffrin's office, defiantly shouting at the Duke. Of course, Raffrin is not all too happy about it, and was about to reciprocate shouting back, but when he sees Erin trailing after Jeffrey, he calms himself down and bids Jeffrey to relearn his manners. But the defiant scientist says it's his father that broke his manners, but chiefly, his concern is why did Raffrin decide to send Erin to the academy when she's his assistant? This basically starts a fight between the two, with Raffrin even saying one time that he's tired of raising incompetent people like Jeffrey in his house, and criticizes Jeffrey putting Erin, a child, into constant work when she needs education. Meanwhile, Jeffrey argues that he'll take care of Erin's education as well as her career path, but Raffrin remains defiant. Erin tries to intercede, overcoming her fear of interrupting the two by suggesting that she do both. She knows she can't leave Jeffrey yet, but she can't also deny getting in the Duke's good graces. However, the two men can't stop bickering, and eventually, they simultaneously yell at Aaron to shut up. This causes the young lady to cry, and understandably so. Even the butler couldn't get her to move. Upon realizing what's happened, Jeffrey stops arguing and carries Aaron to the lab, where he explains his anger isn't because of her. Aaron thinks she can't control her emotions, being a child and all. Seeing he needs to apologize, Jeffrey brings Aaron a huge box. She initially thinks it's more research, but actually, it's a box loaded with sweets from the very famous Alice's Bakery. This seems to soothe Aaron's crying and gets her smile to return. And so Jeffrey asks if she can tell him what's happened. When Aaron talks about meeting with her grandfather, Jeffrey clarifies it isn't what he meant. He gets a little serious and asks Aaron if Havernix visited his lab during his absence. Aaron wonders why Jeffrey's asking about Havernix now, but she answers that the man hasn't been near the lab while Jeffrey was away. Jeffrey explains that it's because he saw that they're making a product using the blueprint from Aaron. That's the blow dryer product. Feeling the need to explain, despite remembering that Jeffrey said he didn't care what Aaron did with the blueprints anyway, she recounts how she's curious how the product would work and approached her grandfather about making it into a business. Jeffrey's more astonished that the idea came from Aaron, so he asked if she's sure it wasn't her grandfather's. Aaron also proclaims that she'll turn the other blueprints into other products too. She can't yet reveal she did it for money and to keep the lab too, though. Anyway, she also reveals that she kept the patent under Jeffrey's name so that he'll manage to profit from the items over time, even if it's not immediately. At least, she reasons it's what Rafferin told her. When asked why, Aaron says it's because she wanted to do so where it's clear to everyone that it is all Jeffrey's creation. But really, it's to keep the lab as per her deal with her grandfather. Nonetheless, she asks Jeffrey to just speak casually and focus on his research. And so when things mellowed down, Jeffrey went back to calmly discussing things with Rafferin, which fortunately, it did go well this time. Funny enough, the butler was asked to be the mediator. With that, the family has agreed to follow Aaron's wishes. She gets to continue working as Jeffrey's assistant, and she also gets to continue her studies at the family estate. Although Jeffrey seems displeased by this, he wanted to talk and plan about Aaron's future slowly, he nonetheless asks the young lady to report what happens at school to him, which Aaron is more than happy to do. A little while later, Aaron's first day at the academy arrives. The academy is actually the education that the Bernat family receives from private tutors. Usually, the students are direct descendants of the family, but some outstanding children from the collateral branches are given admission. On Aaron's first day, she calmly thinks to herself she'll be able to get along with most of her classmates, since it's essentially one big family. Then, a red-haired boy named Fettelman introduces himself to her. He's 10 years old, but Aaron recognizes him as the eventual skilled Imperial Knight that had the ladies swooning. Suddenly, Abelon and Vimel burst in the room, along with a kid they've been bullying. Aaron recognizes the poor kid as Nux Bernat, the future court magician of the Imperial Palace. He's famous like Fettelman because he's the greatest mage produced by the Empire in 100 years. It's sad that he's getting bullied, though. When one of the twins sees Aaron, he pushes her down, clearly in an attempt to bully her. Fettelman helps her to her feet. Meanwhile, Alphonse enters the classroom carrying books. She informs the class that Hilberg will be absent but has given them books to read. She looks at Aaron but gives no indication that they know each other. Aaron is confused, but understands her noticing she wouldn't do any good. Regardless, Aaron announces she'll distribute the books, and the twins bully her for taking the task seriously, but she doesn't back down. Fettelman also realizes that the books she has given were the same books the last time, and they wonder why, since Miss Alphonse has never been mistaken like that before. It's revealed that Alphonse is going to meet with Havernix, of all people, and that she's working for him to obtain Jeffrey's journals from the library. This time, he asks her for a report on it, but notices she's come back empty-handed, so he asks where the journals are. Alphonse reveals that Jeffrey hasn't been working in the library and had taken his work to his study. Havernix asks when that is, and Alphonse says it's when he took Aaron as an assistant. This causes Havernix to inquire why that kid is so special, and when Alphonse struggles to answer quickly, he suddenly gives a demanding outburst. It's not that she's having difficulty answering, it's just her answer is a little too mind-boggling. And so Alphonse shares that Aaron is actually in charge of finding errors in Jeffrey's formulas. Formulas that are too complex and complicated, mind you. With that, Havernix remembers the conversation he had with his wife. They had received news of Aaron being admitted to the academy. and Saria lamented what it had done for their son, Abalon. Saria asks Havernick if he can find out why Raffron suddenly showed interest with Aaron, but he again gets mad. Looks like you need anger management, man. But actually, he doesn't, with his wife, that is, as he calms down before talking again. He reveals that he heard the blow dryer product, which unexpectedly returned a big profit, was Aaron's idea. It's from Jeffrey's blueprints, and as Saria questions that Havernick has all his blueprints, in actuality, Havernick admits it is all just lip service. What he truly laments is that the useless invention turned a big profit. Nevertheless, Saria notes the increased interest in Aaron, with Jeffrey giving her his blueprints, and Raffron sending her to the academy. However, Saria's constant theories tired Havernick out, but she does a good job of diffusing her husband. She emphasizes that although it seems Jeffrey and their father are at odds right now, them showing interest in Aaron means they might be plotting something. But back in the present, Havernick realizes there's no such plot and correctly deduces that Jeffrey and Raffron had a fight for Aaron. Now he knows Aaron's actually a valuable treasure. With that, he harshly dismisses Alphonse and bids her to never return without one of Jeffrey's journals. On her way out, Alphonse can't help but curse her predicament. However, her attitude changes when she encounters the kids Aaron, Fettelman, and Nook. And surprisingly, Jeffrey as well. Apparently, the kids went with him to exchange the books they thought Alphonse had wrongly assigned to the class. But it seems, according to Professor Hilberg, he wanted them all to review part 1 of their textbook because of Aaron's arrival. Though Aaron just announces she's read them all, astonishing her peers. The kids then scamper away, leaving Jeffrey with Alphonse. He asks about Aaron's first day, and she admits to her not getting along with Adelon. No surprise there. But Jeffrey bids Alphonse to report to him if another bullying incident finds Aaron, leaving the young woman feeling like she's a double spy with her constant reports on Jeffrey to Havernick. Kind of feels sorry for you, though. But as of now, Erin's enjoying the company of her 2 newly found friends. Inside their classroom, Erin packs her books, including the most beloved Imperial History Volume 1 that Jeffrey lets her read. As she's about to leave with the young Duke, Nooks attempts to peek beside the door, hoping Abalon, the abusive bully, isn't around. Erin notices him peeking through, and as if she understands his fears, she assures him that Abalon is not in the room. So he enters the vicinity and voices out his admiration to Erin. Nooks praises Erin for her bravery in facing Abalon head-on without even flinching when Abalon attempts to harm her. Moreover, Nooks asks her multiple questions surrounding her fearlessness towards that bully. Alleviating the fear in the boy's heart, she explains how she's unbothered by Abalon a single bit, and they should be doing the same. This thing gets her curious, so she asks why the kid doesn't report Abalon to his parents. Yeah, right, go tell your parents, kid! To Nooks, being the son who looks up to his dad, Modeline, it's kind of bothersome and disappointing for his parents to know that he's being weaker than the bully, a disgrace to the family. In context, Nooks' father is well known in the guild for his straightforwardness that made him authentically useful to the guild. And powerful too, I guess. Despite wanting him to man up, Erin finds a different approach to it. She reveals that she has witnessed Bimel and Abalon wet the bed and how she turns this into a defense. In spite of her story being half made up and half true, her goal is to let Nooks realize that Abalon is nothing to be scared of. Additionally, she assured him that she'll protect him from Abalon over and over again if he cannot defend himself yet. The other young duke asks to join the alliance, then all 3 of them agree to defend themselves from Abalon after her brave assurance. Later in the afternoon, she dallies through the corridor of the mansion and sights the huge window. She sees Havernick with Trunit, a scammer who once conned Havernick that caused the Bernat family to lose massive financial funds outside the mansion. Hence, she runs to her grandfather's office hoping she can give him her ideas before Havernick schemes. Too late, she bumps into Trunit in the office, and when her grandfather politely lets her understand that he has something to attend to with the guests, she tries to stay by using her charms. In the office, Nooks' father is introduced by the Duke to little Erin, while Trunit introduces himself to her. The Deus Viscount persuades the Duke to let her stay as an exposure that may give her ideas, and as a result, she is able to spectate the whole discourse. This Viscount knows his ways, really. He's so compelling like Erin. During the conversation, she remembers how Trunit scammed the Bernat family through Havernick, and Erin is about to stop that from happening and letting the favor come to her side instead. Hence, her main goal as of the moment is to stop that deal from getting sealed. That's actually so genius of her. The discussion between the dukedom and Havernick's guest commences. Trunet introduces himself as the guildmaster of Pelpak Guild, who specializes in trading goods intercontinentally, as he boasts. The Duke listens carefully to what Trunet's intentions are of his visit and if it's good for the dukedom. Then, Trunet proposes to let his guild enter the dukedom for internal trading of high-end goods. Even just by this line, Modeline expresses his subtle suspicions by asking Trunet of what cost for his collaboration to launch. So Trunet lays down his needs by asking for the internal trading route and expressway, which is a highly confidential and top-secret information to begin with. And adding to that, he insists to let the dukedom cover the trading fees. After this offer, Modeline straightforwardly questions Trunet of his contribution in the trade, given that everything is being covered by the dukedom. This strikes a nerve in Havernick, causing him to repulsively complain to his father, the Duke. Regardless of the rising argument, the Duke calmly asks Trunet to give him some time to speak with the dukedom administrators so they can come up with the final answer. As such, he reassures Trunet that the conclusion shall be given before the day he leaves the dukedom and without further delay. So, having this break among the people in that discussion, Havernick consoles his guest by striving to offer him what Trunet wants. So Trunet, being a con artist, asks Havernick to gather 10 million as down payment for the plan. Havernick's soul almost leaves his body after hearing this, yet he still manages to smile and assures his guest the cosmic amount of money. Meanwhile, Erin sulks in the corner in front of her table, contemplating on what magic items she can create to shoo this con man away from the Duke. Wondering almost the same thing, Jeffrey asks the young lady what she may be up to, and so without noticing, both are already discussing a useless magic material that can identify an animal gender. At some point, Erin thinks it is useful, despite Jeffrey thinking otherwise. So as soon as Jeffrey explains how this can differentiate an egg from another, it bombastically piques Erin's curiosity, as this must be the thing she is looking for the scheme to scram subtly. Hence, she asks Jeffrey to explain in further detail that specific part she's intrigued about. I may not have a clue what she's up to, but I get a feeling that this is going to be a good one. On the next day, the discussion among the Duke, Viscount, and Modeline becomes more serious, and explanations begin to be gathered to form a conclusion. However, this decision seems to be a little hard on the Duke, given whatever opportunity can be taken from this venture of the business, while he also weighs the disadvantages. What pushes him to halt from deciding harshly is Modeline's wits, as he tries to persuade the Duke to decline the offer, given the obvious disadvantages that outweigh anything good that does not even come from Trunet at all. Yeah, don't be gullible. Test the waters wisely, bro. The Viscount shares his thoughts, but as soon as the room comes to a silent contemplation, a knock on the door is heard. Erin comes at the perfect time, using her ultimate charms, as she asks to see her grandfather so she can share her thoughts regarding the matter. This piques the old man's interest, given how she can think extremely quickly at such a young age during a very crucial moment. Then all the men in the room listen to her idea, and soon enough, the Duke calls for a meeting with Havernick's guest. Later on, Havernick glides with glee through the corridors of their home, as Trunet behind him stays silent yet giddy of the news they'll be hearing. Oh my, here we go. Havernick assumes that the deal will be sealed today, given how fast his father asked for Trunet's presence. So, as he puts on a smile as he opens the door, his father lets them sit to hear quite a plot twist instead. The Duke lets Erin explain that the Duke would like to have some of the high-end good samples to check whether they are counterfeits or not. This is done by using the invention that Jeffrey made a long while ago that originally identifies the animal's gender before even being born from an egg. Oof, Trunet, not today! Erin explains that the tool is being invented into a counterfeit identifier as of the moment, and will be used as soon as it is made available by Jeffrey, who will be finalizing the invention itself. Trunet sweats as his stomach churns out of nervousness and nerve-wrack. He then tries to con everyone by staying calm and finds an excuse to come back with better high-end samples sooner. Through the hallway, Havernick speaks with Trunet regarding the samples he saw in his carriage, and questions why Trunet did not show his father any of those so as to hasten the deal. Trunet then continues to lie about them having to be unworthy of the Duke's taste, so he is to look for better ones. Trunet asks Havernick if he can hasten the deposit of 10 million, but this stops Havernick from walking with him, so a little fear creeps through him as he reluctantly tries to console Havernick to give him an initial amount of money so they can start the deal regardless. Gullible as he is, Havernick comes into his wife's room immediately that night and asks to find a way. His wife becomes frustrated by his unreasonable request to ask her in-laws, yet what catches her interest is Havernick's complaints about Jeffrey and Erin. As soon as she finds out about Erin's doing in the event today, she assumes that Jeffrey is using the child to involve himself in business again. So this time, schemes rush through her mind as she tells her husband to plan out how they can separate Erin and Jeffrey from each other. Why do they seem like their attitudes fit each other so well? Cruel and malicious. In the laboratory where Jeffrey seems to be living almost all his life, Erin sits in her own designated space trying to converse with Jeffrey. Prior to that, she comes into the laboratory, sharing giddily how her plans regarding the material she lets Jeffrey revise into a counterfeit detector worked and is being accepted by the Duke. Seconds after sitting down on her seat, she wonders why Jeffrey seems not as interested as she assumes him to be regarding the tool and her successful idea. So she investigates by asking him directly why. He then speaks to her just like how older, mature people speak to children. He calmly acknowledges her curiosity and assures her that he is fine with anything as long as it provides knowledge to Erin. As he prepares some snacks for the little girl, he opens a conversation with her again by asking about school activities. He's really looking out for the kid. This makes me soft. Yappy as a kid, Erin shares how she's well focused on the textbooks to read and is doing self-studying while the teacher seems to be absent quite a lot. So she's waiting for Mr. Hilberg to discuss the lessons next week. For now, she focuses more on dealing with connection towards other students. Nonetheless, Jeffrey asks her to be cognizant of the more important things as a kid, simply having fun learning and growing. Yet in Erin's head, a lot of plans are going smoothly for her main goals to be achieved. As a little kid, her body seems to be asking for more rest given how preoccupied her head is with all her plans. Yawning in her seat, Jeffrey notices this and asks her to rest on the internal terrace of the laboratory for a while. She agrees as she comes up the stairs and tucks herself to sleep in her small bed space. Not long after, Rafferin, the Duke, comes to the laboratory. He asks about Erin and learns of her sleep, yet none of the two men knows that Erin is already up and listening to them. Through their conversation, Erin learns of the Duke's plan of adoption for Erin. He plans to let Havernick adopt her, yet Jeffrey refuses and attempts to persuade his father to let him take responsibility for the child. That's the worst idea that came from you, Duke. I thought you were smart. Why Havernick? Yet somehow hurtfully, the Duke condemns Jeffrey's pain by refusing to tolerate a son who sits up in his laboratory trying to find the culprit of his daughter and wife's death. The Duke further added how Erin has been a medium of satisfaction, provided how Jeffrey lost his own daughter, Viola, and his wife altogether in an accident. This leaves Jeffrey lowering his head down with mixed frustrations and emotions. More importantly, Erin alleviates the ambiance by catching their attention as she yawns as if just awakening from her nap. She then acts kindly to her grandfather and comes down to get closer to him. Up front, she realizes that the Duke is indeed a great-grandfather, yet questions still flow in her mind. She then frankly asked the Duke if she is to be leaving the laboratory anytime sooner and why. Sweet, sweet child. Jeffrey, save the girl from Havernick, please. Erin lies down on the grass under the shade of a humongous tree. It feels nerve-wracking for Erin to feel this serene and normal after a few days of the revelations in the laboratory with her grandfather and Jeffrey. I too would feel uneasy as days go by. Adoption is a scary thing, I guess. In context, the Duke has decided to let Erin stay with Jeffrey in the laboratory while finding a good set of parents for the adoption to commence. Although the Duke learns about Erin's uncomfortable interaction with the Havernicks, there is still the possibility of being adopted by them. Yet during that moment in the laboratory, she reveals the warmth she felt on the day when Jeffrey stood up for her when she was treated unfairly. And this became a reason for the Duke to trust the relationship between both of them. Hence, in the present, the two young heirs, Nooks and Predel, have come to find her and speak about business books. As the children enjoy talking, a butler comes to Erin's aid as she is called by her grandfather in his office. There, she sits on the couch facing the Duke as she behaves, while her feet are not reaching the floor. Why is this too cute? The Duke offers her a gift, something that she really wants. Yet she contemplates whether to tell him that she wants Jeffrey to adopt her, but it seems not plausible for the plan to go smoothly with that resort. Hence, she asks for a wish coupon that she can use anytime she wants. The Duke agrees to this, and when the deal is sealed between the two of them, a butler comes to inform the Duke of the arrival of some guests. So the Duke lets Aaron wait, and so he leaves the office. Little does he know, Aaron can read as much as old people do. Her eyes are locked onto the documents on the table. It reads about the failed mine under Havernick's care, which made him lose his father's favor in her past life. Suddenly, an idea comes to mind. Please have a good idea. If she is to use this report and pinpoint the false changes in the documents that Havernick implanted to show off, she may be able to keep herself away from the Havernicks, instantly canceling the probability of being adopted by this menace of a family. Flashback to the failed mine that Havernick has bought impulsively to cover up his failed businesses. In Aaron's past life as Havernick's secretary, he feared his father's disappointments, and in order to keep his reputation, he bought the Chadwick's mine to cover up his financial losses. This is to let his father see that his efforts have come to fruition, yet he is actually experiencing otherwise. During that time, Aaron was the one who changed the numbers in his financial reports to retain his dignity and reputation, despite all of it being false. So in the present, Aaron knows the document is fraud, yet the Duke has no idea regarding so. As a result of seeing this document in the present life, she plans to use it against Havernick in order to avoid the adoption. Oh dear, please find a way! I really hope they won't be her adoptive parents. They're not even worthy to be parents at all! Ugh! Soon after, the Duke returns to the office and asks Aaron to have dinner with him. Given this opportunity to dine with Raffrin is rare for Aaron, hence she agrees. On the downside, as soon as they arrive at the dining hall, the Havernicks are there to attend the dinner also. This brings into Aaron's heart chills of worry, already knowing how much her grandfather is considering the adoption with the Havernicks. However, Aaron feels a huge sense of relief when she sees Jeffrey, who, despite only being forced to come out and join the family, still came because of her. When the dinner begins, Aaron feels a little settled now that Jeffrey's with her. Yet, as if the odds aren't in her favor, the Havernicks propose to have their research facility opened as soon as possible to let Aaron do her apprenticeship in the facility while using Jeffrey and his inventions to profit. Hell has a great place for people like you. Urgh! This turn of events puts a sour taste in Aaron's mouth. Then again, Havernick pauses, and in shock learns that his father is considering them as Aaron's adoptive parents during the adoption announcement during the annual meeting. Aaron's expression cannot be read as fear and hopelessness fills her heart. This is hurting me. Why? So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!